Hey everybody, this is Matt again, and I'm going to be showing you basically a side-by-side comparison of Apple Macintosh computers and Microsoft Windows computers. Now, I'm not really a fanboy of either one. I use both. I mostly use Windows at work, and I use Macintosh at home, and I also use Linux. So I kind of use a lot of different computer systems, and I think each one has its own advantages and disadvantages, and you kind of have to pick the one that best meets your needs depending on what you use your computer for. But I'm just gonna. Some of you guys out there may have never used a Mac computer before, or maybe you haven't used one a lot, and maybe you've never even seen one before. So I'm gonna show basically what they look like, what they do, and how they compare to your average Windows computer. So I've got Windows actually running here on my Mac to give kind of a side-by-side comparison of the two. This is Windows XP, which you've probably seen before. And in Macintosh, there are some similar things. Like in Windows, you have the Start menu with your programs and things that you launch. Well, in Macintosh, you have the Launchpad, which is pretty much the same thing. You've got the kind of the standard apps that Macintosh comes with, and then you have the apps that you install, which are all the ones that I've installed. Also, in Windows, you have your control panel, which you go here, and that's basically how you configure pretty much everything on your computer. Well, in Macintosh, you have system preferences, which is very similar to that. So by clicking the Apple button and then System Preferences, it basically brings up the Apple version of Control Panel. And you can configure pretty much anything you need to configure in here. So this little thing down here is called the dock. And it's kind of like the taskbar in Windows. This blue thing is the taskbar, and basically when you start a program, when you minimize it, it goes back and lives down here in the taskbar. Well, it's pretty similar with Macintosh. It lives down here in the dock. And the way that you see what programs are running in the dock is there'll be like this, I don't know if you can see this on the video, but there'll be like a white little light underneath the program icon or the app icon. And that's how you know it's running. And the thing that's interesting about Macintosh is when you actually close something, I won't do it with this, but like say I have my web browser up and you go to close it, it's still running actually back here, down here in the dock, because you can see there's a little white light there. It doesn't actually close it, it minimizes it, which at first, the first time I started using Macintosh, that was very, very frustrating to me because, I'm kind of the overly controlling computer user, and when I use a computer, I want the computer to do exactly what I tell it to do, and I want to have complete control over my computer. So if I'm exiting something and that's not killing it, then that makes me unhappy. But it's really not that big of a deal. So down here in the dock, you have basically your most recently used programs. You can drag stuff here too, if you want. Other programs that you may have, you can drag them down to the dock if you so wish. So it's really quite handy compared to the taskbar in Windows, which is basically once you close this, it's gone. So you also have down here in the taskbar, you have the Finder. And the Finder is pretty much simpler or similar to the My Computer in Windows. So it lists all your drives and your folders and all that stuff. That's basically what the Finder does. The Finder, you have your documents and your applications and your movies and things like that. The Finder did give me kind of a fit initially because the default view is basically it only lets you access like the documents and the movies and the music and the pictures and stuff, and it doesn't actually let you go. Let me go back here to like the real folders on your drive, and that kind of bothered me because in my computer you see the entire drive, and you can go and basically into the system files and all that stuff. But by default, Macintosh doesn't let you do that. I guess they're assuming the average computer user doesn't really need to mess around with system files on their computer, which I guess is true. But it kind of frustrated me. One of the cons, I guess, that I noticed of Macintosh computers is the sound isn't really that great, like for watching movies. Now, I have a couple of speakers that I plugged into it, and that makes the sound a lot better. But before, the sound really wasn't that great. I had to crank it up, like, all the way, um, just to really hear the movie clearly. So, that wasn't that great. Applications and programs, they do crash on Mac, but they usually do not bring the whole operating system down. Like in Windows, sometimes you'll get something, you'll get a program that crashes and it'll like bring the entire computer down. I mean, you'll have to restart it. That usually doesn't happen in Macintosh. I've had it happen a couple times, but that was basically my fault. I did something that the normal computer user would never do on a Macintosh. So, let's see. So we have our Finder. That's kind of like our My Computer. We have our Launchpad. That's pretty much like the Start menu in Windows. We have Mission Control. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but it kind of zooms out. Now, I don't know if you can see this or not, but it zooms out, and you've got several desktops here that you can choose from, and you can store your stuff on one desktop and then zoom out and go to the next desktop and so on. There's also I go to Launchpad. Let's see here. The dashboard. The dashboard is over here. It basically shows me all my little widgets and stuff. I have like a temperature widget, and I have a weather widget, and basically whatever you want can go there. So that's pretty cool. Returning down to the dock, you basically have a mail app. That's pretty much kind of similar to like Outlook Express in Windows. Let's see. You have calendar app, pretty straightforward. And you can basically drag whatever program you want here that you use a lot. These are just the ones that I use a lot, but they may be different depending on the person who's using them. So up here at the top, you have the little Apple button, and if you click About This Mac, it'll basically tell you kind of geeky information about your computer, like how much RAM it has, and so on. You can do software updates. You still have to do updates on Macintosh just like you have to do on Windows. Also, you have the App Store. I don't really like the App Store because most of the apps on here you have to pay for. There's not a lot of really good free ones. And in Windows, there are tons of really good free programs that you can get. But in Macintosh, there really isn't a whole lot. So, I mean, you can Google and find more, but the Apple-approved app stores, I don't really like it personally. But, you have your recent stuff that's kind of like in Windows. Let's see, my recent documents, kind of the same thing. You just have, the shutdown, restart, all that. The force quit is basically like the task manager in Windows. So if something is misbehaving in Macintosh, you can kill it with this. Just like if I launched the task manager in Windows, I could kill stuff. You do Control-Alt-Delete and in something that's misbehaving. Same thing, basically. Also, when you launch an app in Macintosh, up here at the top, when you highlight this window, you get little menus that are specific to that application. So if I click on Chrome, it's going to be all the Chrome stuff up here. If I click on like VirtualBox, it's going to be all the VirtualBox specific stuff. Let me minimize that. So that's a little different. By default, you can't right-click in Macintosh. Now, I've changed that. If you go into the system preferences, which is basically the Macintosh version of Control Panel, you can change that. But by default, you can't right-click. You have to do a command click, and that kind of gave me fits too when I was first, when I first got my Macintosh. So those are a few things, a few comparisons between Windows and Macintosh. One of the things that bothered me was also this this iMac that I have, which I don't know if you know what that is. I'll show you. It's basically this computer right here, right there. That's basically what I have. That's what I'm, making this recording on. And that's basically the Apple version of the desktop PC. It didn't come with a Blu-ray drive, which is Blu-ray drive is kind of like the new DVD format, and that kind of bugged me, because it wasn't cheap and it didn't come with a Blu-ray drive, so that was kind of a con. Let's see. A couple of the good things about Macs are installing apps is very, very easy to do. So basically, I have an applications directory folder, whatever you want to call it, and in there are all my programs that are on my computer. And to install a program, literally all I have to do is just drag it in there, and it installs. And that's it. It's just drag and drop. Like I say, this is a program I've downloaded off the internet. If I just drag it and drop it in there, it installs, and that's it. Whereas with Windows, if I want to install a program, let's see. If I want to install like CCleaner, I have to go through this whole process. Okay, next, I agree, just to install a program. With Mac, I just have to drag and drop. So for most programs in Macintosh. Now there are some apps that you do have to walk through and do a more complicated install procedure, but most of them are pretty simple, straightforward. Also in Macintosh, you don't need an antivirus. That's another good thing, because antiviruses, they slow down your computer because they're always scanning things in the background. Whenever you plug in a USB drive, it's going to scan it or whatever, and that slows down your computer. Now, I actually have an antivirus on this Mac. I have Norton, but I got it free, so I didn't pay any money for it, and you really don't need it. I'm just hypochondriac, I guess. And but yeah, you don't need you don't need an antivirus like in Windows. I've got Microsoft Security Essentials down here. Also, Windows has a firewall. You don't need a firewall in Macintosh just because of the way that they're different, how they do networking different, and I won't get into that because it'll go way over people's heads. And anyway, so those are a few things about what I like about the Mac. It's beautiful. It's definitely a gorgeous computer. It looks very, very good, and it's very nice to watch movies on and do all that. So, if you're a web designer or a graphic artist, or you'll love this. So I think if you're an average user wondering about should I get a Mac versus just stick with a Windows PC, I would say it's worth the extra money that you're going to spend in the long run, because I think the overall experience is better. Yes, you will pay more, but I can't say I've really ever met a person who got a Mac and didn't like it. There's not very many people out there like that. Most people will get Macintosh. Yes, there is a learning curve at first, and you can get frustrated, but eventually you will really begin to like them, because they're designed to be easy to use and smooth operating. So for the average user, I would say, why not get a MacBook? For the tech-savvy user, I would say, well, you can really save your money. You don't really need, since you're kind of tech-savvy and geeky, just go and get Linux or something, because that's going to really give you something that will satisfy you, because it will allow you to tinker with your system and customize it any way that you want. So you can kind of save money and not buy an expensive Mac. For a business user, you should stick with Windows, because Windows is what runs on most of the computers in the world. And most software developers develop applications for Windows, and most of the business software out there is for Windows. It's not for Mac. So if you're trying to run a business on Macintosh computers, it's going to be pretty difficult. yeah, so that's pretty much it. Kind of a brief overview of um, Macintosh versus Windows and kind of how different they are and things that they're similar with. So yeah, cool. I just wanted to show you guys. If you've never seen a Mac before, this is basically what it looks like. Alrighty.